The silent void speaks. The deep space research vessel Starbound drifted through the endless dark of Sector Theta 7, its hull gleaming silver against the backdrop of distant stars. Captain Nora Blackwood stood on the bridge, her emerald eyes scanning the holographic displays that showed nothing but empty space for light years in every direction. At 32, she was one of the youngest captains in the Terran Deep Space Command, her auburn hair pulled back in a practical ponytail that couldn't quite contain the rebellious strands that framed her face. "Another dead end, Captain," reported Lieutenant Commander Torres from his station, his weathered face showing the disappointment they all felt. No signs of the anomaly the probe detected 6 months ago. Nora's jaw tightened. This was their third failed expedition to locate the mysterious energy signature that had appeared briefly on long-range sensors before vanishing. The Collective Council was losing patience with their mission, and funding for deep space exploration was already stretched thin after the recent conflicts with the Galactic Empire. "Dr. Reeves, any thoughts?" Nora asked, turning to the man who had become both her most trusted advisor and the source of her most restless nights. Dr. Jackson Reeves looked up from his xenoarchaeological equipment, pushing a hand through his dark hair. At 28, he was brilliant beyond his years, with striking blue eyes that seemed to see through the veils of time itself. His lean frame was bent over ancient star charts, comparing them to current readings. "The energy signature matched nothing in our databases," he said, his voice carrying that slight accent from the outer colonies that made Nora's pulse quicken. "But these old precursor maps suggest this sector wasn't always empty. There are references to something called the Crimson Veil, a barrier that hides what shouldn't be found." Their eyes met across the bridge, and Nora felt that familiar electric tension that had been building between them for months. Professional boundaries had kept them apart, but in the isolation of deep space, those boundaries were becoming harder to maintain. "Captain," the communications officer's voice cut through the moment, "I'm detecting something massive decloaking off our starboard bow." The ancient guardian awakens. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a sight that stole the breath from every person on the bridge. A colossal structure materialized from nothingness, not a ship, but something far more ancient and elegant. It was crystalline in nature, its surface reflecting the light of distant stars in patterns that seemed almost alive. The structure was easily 10 times the size of their vessel, with flowing curves and spiraling towers that defied conventional engineering. "My God," Jackson whispered, moving closer to Nora unconsciously. "It's beautiful." The structure pulsed with a soft crimson light, and suddenly their instruments detected life signs. Not just any life signs, but something that registered as both alien and hauntingly familiar. "Captain, we're being hailed," Torres reported, his voice tight with tension. On screen, the view screen shimmered and a figure appeared that made Nora's heart skip. The being was humanoid but ethereally beautiful, with pale silver skin that seemed to glow from within. Long flowing hair the color of starlight cascaded around delicate features, and eyes like liquid mercury gazed out at them with ancient wisdom. The being wore robes that seemed to be made of condensed nebula, shifting colors that hypnotized the viewer. "I am Zephyr," the being spoke, and its voice was like music made of wind and distant thunder. "Guardian of the threshold, keeper of the lost, you have crossed the Crimson Veil, children of Terra. Few have done so and lived to speak of it." Nora stepped forward, acutely aware of Jackson's presence beside her. "I'm Captain Nora Blackwood of the Terran vessel Starbound. We detected an energy signature and came to investigate. We mean no harm." Zephyr's lips curved in what might have been a smile. "Harm? Child? You could no more harm me than a candle could burn the sun, but your arrival has awakened something that has slept for 20,000 of your years. The question is, are you ready for what you have unleashed?" Secrets in the star crystal chamber. Within hours, Nora and Jackson found themselves aboard the ancient structure, walking through corridors that seemed to breathe with their own life. The walls were transparent crystal, showing the swirling colors of space beyond, but somehow they felt warm and alive under their hands. Zephyr led them to a vast chamber at the heart of the structure, where massive crystal formations grew from floor to ceiling. Each crystal pulsed with different colored light, and within them, shadowy forms could be seen, beings in suspended animation. "Your people once knew mine," Zephyr explained, moving with fluid grace between the crystal columns. "Before the Great Silence, before humanity forgot its true heritage. We were lovers, warriors, dreamers together among the stars." Jackson's scanner readings were going wild. "Nora, these readings, the genetic markers I'm detecting, they're not entirely alien. There are human elements, but they're ancient, far older than any human civilization we know." Nora felt a chill run down her spine. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we might not be looking at aliens at all. We might be looking at our own ancestors." Zephyr turned to them, those mercury eyes reflecting depths of time and loss. "Your Dr. Reeves speaks truth, though only part of it. 20,000 years ago, when your Earth was young and the stars sang with different voices, there was love between our kinds. Children were born of that union. Children who carried the best of both worlds." The Guardian moved closer to them, and Nora could feel an otherworldly magnetism radiating from the being. But war came, as it always does. Fear of the unknown, jealousy of power, the small-minded hatred that infects lesser souls. The great separation happened, and your people were hidden away, their memories blocked, their true nature suppressed. "Hidden away where?" Nora asked, though part of her already suspected the answer. "On a small blue world, third from its sun, where they could grow and evolve in safety until the time came for reunion." Zephyr's hand reached out, not quite touching Nora's face, but close enough that she could feel warmth radiating from the pale skin. "That time is now, Captain Blackwood. The sleeping ones are awakening, and the galaxy must know that the children of two worlds have returned." The touch of ancient fire, as if responding to Zephyr's words, the crystal formations around them began to pulse more rapidly. One by one, the shadowy forms within became clearer, more defined. Nora gasped as she realized she was looking at beings that seemed to blend human and alien characteristics in the most beautiful ways possible. "They're gorgeous," she whispered, and felt Jackson's hand brush against hers. "The union of passion and purpose," Zephyr said softly. "Love that transcended species, that created something new under the stars. Your people have that same fire within them, Captain. I can see it burning between you and your companion." Nora felt her cheeks flush, but before she could respond, Jackson stepped closer to her side. "We should get back to the ship," he said, but his voice was husky with something more than professional concern. "Report our findings." "Yes," Zephyr agreed, but there was a knowing look in those ancient eyes. "But know this, what has been awakened cannot be put back to sleep. The Crimson Veil has fallen, and powers across the galaxy will soon know that the hybrid children have returned. Some will welcome this news. Others will see it as a threat to be eliminated." As they prepared to leave the crystal chamber, Zephyr placed a hand on each of their shoulders. The touch sent waves of warmth and strange energy through their bodies, and for a moment Nora could swear she felt something awakening within herself, something that had been sleeping in her very genes. "The journey ahead will test you both," Zephyr warned. "Not just as explorers or scientists, but as man and woman. The fire that burns between you is part of the ancient heritage. Do not deny it in the name of duty. Love was what created the hybrid children. Love may be what saves them." Returned to dangerous truths back aboard the Starbound, Nora stood in her quarters staring out at the crystal structure that still hung in space beside them. The implications of what they'd discovered were staggering. If Zephyr spoke the truth, then humanity wasn't purely human at all, but the result of an ancient union between species. A soft chime at her door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called, and wasn't surprised when Jackson entered. He'd changed, from his expedition gear into a simple shirt and pants that clung to his lean frame in ways that made her breath catch. "The data we collected," he said, holding up a portable scanner. "Nora, this is going to change everything. The genetic markers, the energy readings. It's all proof that human evolution didn't happen the way we thought, and that we're not alone. In the universe in the way we believed, she added, turning to face him. The space between them seemed charged with electricity. The Council is going to want this information immediately, Jackson continued, but his eyes were fixed on her face, not the scanner in his hands. Once they know, there'll be teams of scientists, military advisors, politicians. Our quiet mission will be over, Nora finished. She moved closer to him, drawn by the same magnetic force she'd felt in Zephyr's presence. This might be our last night of peace before everything changes. Jackson set down the scanner, his hands now free to reach for her. Nora, we've been dancing around this for months, what we found out there, what Zephyr said about ancient love creating something beautiful. I know, she whispered, stepping into his arms. Maybe the Guardian was right. Maybe denying what's between us is denying part of what makes us human. Their lips met in a kiss that felt like coming home and discovering a new world at the same time. The passion that had been building between them for so long finally found release. And as they held each other in the soft light of her quarters, with the ancient crystal structure glowing outside their window, they felt the truth of Zephyr's words. Love had indeed created something beautiful among the stars, and it was about to create something beautiful again. As they moved together toward her bed, neither of them noticed the soft crimson light that had begun to pulse within the crystal structure, or the way similar lights were beginning to appear in star systems across the galaxy. The awakening had begun, and with it a new chapter in the story of two species whose destinies had been intertwined since the dawn of time. The crimson veil had fallen, and the children of ancient love were about to reclaim their heritage among the stars. 3 days after their first contact with Zephyr, the Starbound received an emergency transmission that shattered the peaceful intimacy Nora and Jackson had found in each other's arms. The message came from Admiral Command itself, encoded with the highest security protocols. Captain Blackwood, came the stern voice of Admiral Harrison, you are to maintain position and await the arrival of the battlecruiser Dominion. Commander Vale will assume operational command of the first contact situation. Nora felt her blood run cold. Commander Vale, her former lover, the man who had broken her heart 3 years ago when he chose career advancement over their relationship, the same man who had publicly questioned her fitness for Deep Space Command, claiming she was too emotional for critical decisions. Son of a bitch, she muttered, ending the transmission. Jackson, who had been lying beside her in the aftermath of their passionate night, sat up with concern. What is it? He asked, his hand trailing along her bare shoulder in a gesture of comfort that sent shivers through her. My past is about to collide with our present, Nora said grimly. Commander Derek Vale is coming to take over our mission. Jackson's jaw tightened. He'd heard the stories about Vale, seen the way Nora's expression darkened whenever his name came up in official communications. He can't just take over. This is our discovery. He can and he will, Nora replied, pulling on her uniform, unless we can prove that what we've found here is too important to be handled by military protocol. Before Jackson could respond, their communicators chimed simultaneously. It was Torres from the bridge, his voice tight with excitement and fear. Captain, you need to get up here immediately. The alien structure, it's changing. The awakening Queen on. The bridge, they watched in awe as the crystal structure began to transform. What had been static crystalline formations were now moving, flowing like liquid light. New sections were emerging from the central core, and the entire structure was growing larger by the minute. Energy readings are off the charts, Torres reported. And Captain, we're detecting multiple life signs now, hundreds of them. The main screen flickered and Zephyr appeared, but the Guardian looked different now, more solid, more present. Behind the ethereal being, they could see movement in the crystal chambers, shadows taking on definite shapes. Captain Blackwood, Zephyr's musical voice carried a note of urgency. The awakening has begun sooner than expected. Your people's arrival has accelerated the process. The Queen stirs, and with her, the last survivors of the hybrid generation. Queen? Nora asked, stepping closer to the screen. Beside her, Jackson's presence was a comforting anchor in the growing chaos. Queen Seraphina, last daughter of the union between your kinds. She has slept the longest, waited the most patiently, but she dreams of ancient promises, of love that transcended species and created new forms of life among the stars. The screen shifted, showing a crystal chamber larger than all the others. Within it, a figure began to take shape, tall, graceful, with the bearing of royalty and the beauty of a goddess. As they watched, cracks appeared in the crystal, spreading like a spider's web. She awakens, Zephyr whispered, and she will want to know why her children scattered to the far worlds, why the great love was forgotten. The battle cruiser arrives. The Dominion dropped out of hyperspace with all the subtlety of a meteor impact. The massive battle cruiser dwarfed the research vessel, its weapon systems powered and ready. Within minutes, Commander Derek Vale was transported aboard the Starbound, striding onto the bridge with the confidence of a man who had never met a situation he couldn't dominate. At 35, Vale was still devastatingly handsome in a cold, classical way. His black hair was perfectly styled, his uniform immaculate, and his dark eyes held the kind of calculating intelligence that had made him one of the youngest commanders in the fleet. When those eyes fixed on Nora, she felt the familiar mixture of attraction and revulsion that had defined their relationship. "Captain Blackwood," he said formally, though his gaze lingered on her lips in a way that made Jackson's hands clench into fists. "I'll be taking command of this operation. You and your team will provide full cooperation and briefing materials." "Commander Vale," Nora replied coolly. "I should point out that this is a first contact situation requiring delicate handling. My team has established communication protocols that will be reviewed and likely replaced with proper military procedures," Vale interrupted. His eyes shifted to Jackson, taking in the younger man's protective stance near Nora. "And you are?" "Dr. Jackson Reeves, xenoarchaeologist," Jackson replied, his voice steady despite the obvious tension. Vale's smile was razor-sharp. "Ah, yes, the academic. I've read your reports. Interesting theories about human genetic heritage, though somewhat imaginative." Before the confrontation could escalate, the ship's alarms began blaring. On the main screen, the crystal structure was now fully transformed, resembling a vast city of living light floating in space, and from its central spire, a single figure was emerging. Queen of the Stars, Queen Seraphina materialized on the bridge of the Starbound without warning, her presence filling the room with an otherworldly magnetism that made everyone step back in instinctive awe. She was tall and regal, with skin that seemed to contain starlight and eyes that held the depth of nebulae. Her hair cascaded around her like liquid silver, and she wore robes that shifted between dimensions, sometimes appearing solid, sometimes seeming to be made of pure energy. But it was her beauty that struck them most powerfully, a beauty so perfect it was almost painful to look upon, combining the best features of human and alien heritage into something that transcended both. "Children of Terra," she spoke, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated in their bones. "I am Seraphina, queen of the hybrid realm, daughter of two worlds. I have awakened to find my people scattered and my legacy forgotten." Commander Vale stepped forward, his military training overriding his obvious attraction to the alien queen. "Your Majesty, I am Commander Derek Vale of the Terran Space Command. We come in peace and wish to establish diplomatic relations between our peoples." Seraphina's gaze swept over him dismissively before settling on Nora and Jackson. When her eyes fixed on the way they stood close together, the bond obvious between them, her expression softened with something like approval. "You," she said, pointing at Nora. "You command this vessel?" "I am Captain Nora Blackwood," Nora replied, stepping forward despite Vale's attempt to intercede. "This is my ship and my crew." "And this one?" Seraphina's attention turned to Jackson. "He stands at your side as more than a subordinate." "Doctor, Reeves is my science officer," Nora said carefully, "and someone I care for deeply." The Queen's smile was radiant. "Good. Love between equals, passion that ignites the stars. This is how my people were born. This is what was lost when fear separated the hybrid children from their true nature. Vale's face darkened. Your Majesty, while personal relationships are interesting, we have more pressing matters to discuss. The Terran Command has questions about your technology, your intentions, your military capabilities. Serafina turned to him with eyes that suddenly blazed with ancient fire. Military capabilities? Child, I have slept for 20,000 years dreaming of reunion and love, only to awaken to find my children have become warriors and politicians. This saddens me greatly. The choice of hearts. In the hours that followed, Queen Serafina toured the ship, speaking with crew members and learning about the society humanity had built in the absence of their hybrid heritage. She was particularly interested in the relationships between the crew, the bonds of friendship and love that held them together. In the privacy of the observation lounge, she spoke candidly with Nora and Jackson, while Vale attended to his military protocols. You love each other, she observed, settling gracefully into a chair that seemed too mundane for her otherworldly presence. I can see it in the way you move together, the way your energies intertwine. It reminds me of the great loves that created my people. Your Majesty, Nora began, but Serafina raised a hand. Please call me Serafina. We are all children of the same stars. The Queen leaned forward intently. Tell me, in your time together, have you felt changes, new abilities, enhanced intuition, dreams of places you've never been? Nora and Jackson exchanged glances. Since their night together, both had indeed experienced strange sensations, moments where they seemed to share thoughts, times when they could sense each other's emotions across the ship. The hybrid heritage awakens through love, Serafina explained. Physical union between those who carry the dormant genes can activate abilities that have slept for millennia. You are becoming what your ancestors were meant to be. And what is that exactly? Jackson asked, his scientific curiosity overriding his caution. Bridges between worlds. Healers who can touch both flesh and spirit. Explorers who can navigate, not just space but the dimensions between realities. Serafina's eyes glowed softly. The universe is far larger and more wonderful than your people remember. The hybrid children were meant to help all species reach their full potential. The Commander's ultimatum. Vale's interruption shattered the intimate moment. He strode into the lounge with several armed Marines, his expression hard with military resolve. I'm sorry to interrupt, he said, though his tone suggested otherwise. But we've received new orders from command. Queen Serafina is to be transported to Earth for full diplomatic and scientific analysis. The crystal structure is to be secured and studied. Serafina rose from her chair, and suddenly the temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Secured? Studied? Commander, you speak as if I am a specimen to be examined. With respect, Your Majesty, that's exactly what you are, Vale replied bluntly. An unknown alien entity with potentially dangerous capabilities. Earth's security must come first. The Queen's anger was a beautiful and terrible thing to behold. Her robes began to shift through colors that had no names, and the air around her crackled with energy. I am not alien, foolish child. I am the daughter of your own ancestors, awakened to reunite the scattered children with their true heritage, and I will not be caged by fear and small minds. She turned to Nora and Jackson. You must choose now. Will you stand with love and the future it promises, or with fear and the limitations it imposes? The fire of ancient love. The confrontation erupted into chaos when Vale ordered his Marines to stun Queen Serafina. The energy weapons had no effect on her, but her response was immediate and overwhelming. Light blazed from her form, and suddenly everyone in the room was experiencing visions, memories of the ancient time when humans and aliens had loved freely among the stars. In those visions they saw the truth. Humanity's expansion into space hadn't been driven by conquest or exploration alone, but by love affairs that had transcended species. They saw hybrid children born of passion and wonder, capable of abilities that seemed magical. They witnessed the war that had torn apart this golden age, driven by those who feared what they couldn't understand. When the visions faded, Vale, and his Marines were on their knees, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they'd seen. But Nora and Jackson stood strong, their hands clasped together, power flowing between them. "We choose love," Nora said firmly. "We choose the future you offer." Seraphina's smile was like sunrise over a new world. "Then come with me, children of two worlds. Let me show you what you're truly capable of." As they prepared to leave the Empire, starbound with the Queen, Nora felt no sadness at abandoning her command. She was gaining something far greater, a chance to help humanity reclaim its true heritage among the stars. Behind them, Commander Vale struggled to his feet, his worldview shattered by what he'd experienced. In his eyes was the dawning realization that he'd chosen duty over love once too often, and now it might be too late to change course. But ahead lay adventure, discovery, and the promise of a love that could literally reshape the galaxy. As Nora and Jackson followed Queen Seraphina into the crystal city that awaited them, they knew they were embarking on the greatest journey of their lives, one that would awaken not just their own hidden abilities, but the dormant potential of all humanity. The crimson veil had fallen completely now, and in its wake came the dawn of a new age where love and wonder would once again rule the stars.